Well, welcome everybody. At least we are live once again on WineShark Wednesday. It is I, your host, WineShark. Hope you guys are doing well. It is another hot August day. Just to give you the weather report as usual. It's been one of those weird examples of weather driving all of our choices when it comes to everything I eat and drink. So wine is doing the whole thing. Good afternoon, Mr. Carey. Good to see you. So it has been a kind of funny, funky couple of weeks of events going on and things and planning and things in the business of the Wine Shark world. Number one, had a fun show over at the Sleeping Panther last Sunday. We're doing an every other week thing at the Sleeping Panther right now, and I hope you guys can have an opportunity to join us. We did some really interesting dog days of summer wines. And honestly, one of the funkiest shows that we've done in a while. We had some wines that I don't think I've ever featured on any other shows, some that we've even tried out together for the first time. So it was a lot of fun. Hope you guys can join us. We'll do the same show on the 28th. So we will see you guys there in downtown Fort Worth. Again, in other upcoming news this weekend, the McKinney, we're going to be doing the Back to the 80s. It is the Sip and Stroll event in downtown McKinney. So we've got tickets on sale. If you go to the Wine Shark on Facebook, you can get a discount code, or you just use the discount code WineShark for 10% off. But there's, I think, 35 different vendors coming around. You've got a bunch of opportunities to visit some great shops and support local business and visit the cool 90s arcade that it has going to give you it's called Arcade 92. It's got all kinds of throwback games for 1980s era video games, plus yours truly will be over in the square as well. Actually just off the square, serving up some awesome wine and teaching people about some of the history of the 1980s invention of White Zinfandel. So kind of fun, actually. Well, the 1980s popularity wasn't invented then, but we'll talk about that on the weekend. So get yourself a wristband, shop, stroll, get some booze. Great excuse to day drink, and I hope to see you guys then. And this can be really a lot of fun. So anyway, today, I said wine topics wise, not much going. I mean, I say there's not much going on. I didn't have anything really special as far as wine functions and such to talk about, but I've been keeping kind of tabs on the things that have been going on. With the harvest is really kicking off this year, and I'm seeing a lot of information coming in just on not only the sheer volume of what's going on, and some of these individual wineries like Toomey, for instance, announced today that they had their very first harvest. So you're starting to see the grapes that are getting pulled off early in the harvest are coming out right now. So these are things that generally you want to preserve that high acidity. So these are a lot of lighter white wines are coming off now in that mid-August period. Although because of the heat, this is still actually a little early, a couple of weeks early, according to some of the sources that I was reading. So there's also, what was the number? Something like the amazing amount of wine that is actually supposed to be coming out this year. The overall tonnage of the harvest is supposed to be really, really impressive, which is definitely set to help out something like 3.28 billion in the overall tonnage for wines. So I have to check. I need to go check to find that article again, but it kind of baffled me. So I started looking into individual wineries and seeing how they were doing, and everybody is saying that they're getting really big harvests so far. So kind of that confirmed between what the industry thinks and what individual growers are actually seeing is really good. So far, wildfire danger has been pretty much non-existent, so that's very encouraging for this part of the year. But we've got to hold on to our expectations and make sure that the next few weeks, and in fact, actually the next couple of months, because this is going to last all the way through October, are going to be stay hopefully fire free and let that harvest come back, because a lot of wineries need it. Speaking of fire impact, another personal winery that's one of my favorites. Chateau Boswell is back and is receiving guests again. They lost all their facility in the glass fire a few years back, devastated and burned down the chateau itself. But the wine caves and everything underneath were still good. Their grapes have been, they've been regrowing grapes and getting sources from other stuff. And all things considered, they are back in the game, and I'm very, very excited to try some of their wines in the coming year when they start producing new stuff. So Really excited for them, and hope that you guys will go experiment and support some of these impacted wineries as well. So that being said, the other event I forgot to say the other event other than Sleeping Panther and the upcoming show, the happy hour hike out at the shops at Legacy West. I'll be also sponsoring a booth out there, similar to the Sip and Stroll, but different format, slightly different format, different location. This one's in the Legacy West in West Plano. It's the shops at Legacy West, and you get an arm. Same thing though. You get an armband. You get to go to different shops. Each one's got different things with different food options. Some are doing food and wine, food and beer, all kind. Just wine, just beer, whatever. They're doing all kinds of neat stuff. So if you have a yen to get having a happy hour drink on a Thursday afternoon, it'll be the first Thursday in September. So look for that upcoming here pretty soon as well, and join the WineShark in the wild. So anyway, let's do our wine quiz today. Let's see what we've got in the world of how much do I know. That was the weird thing I was going to tell you about the wine that we'd never tried before. I'd learned a lot about it, but we hadn't tried this specific wine, and that is Pétillant Natural, which is basically the original method of carbonating wine. It is the ancestral method, where you basically put the wine in the bottle while it's still fermenting, okay? And you allow the fermentation to happen there, which is slightly different than the traditional method of champagne, which you take a still wine, which is already done fermenting, and then you force feed it yeast and sugar to cause fermentation to happen in the bottle. So there's slightly different processes. Pet nats are very so they have this very cloudy, hazy. They're not disgorged at the end, unlike champagne, traditional method champagne or traditional method cava or traditional method any of the given crémants. They clarify them at the end. They take the yeast cells and they spit them out, right, in the disgorgement process. They don't do that with pet nats. So pet nats, this kind of funky, cloudy, hazy. One of my customers said that it was not wit beer. He said this is exactly like the blue moon of the Hefeweizen of the wine world. And I went, he's not far off with that. Although we don't add fruit to the thing or anything, most of them have this tangy, sour-ish texture and a lot of funkiness because they've got that yeast cells still in the wine when you're trying them. So it's a really fun grapefruit, but it depends on what type of grape you make it from. It's it's a broad class of wines. The one we had was the Pinot Grigio. So it was this wonderful little ruby red grapefruit bomb that was just friggin' delightful. So definitely in the mood. So I've been in the mood for Pinot Gris for a little while now, and in fact we even served some at the Panther, and you'll find some of the Panther this week, or not this week, next week. And so we've been in that mode. So today we're going to be talking about King Estates Pinot Gris, back on our kick to Willamette. So, but before we get there, the wine quiz. So we do the wine quiz because we like testing our little brain power. Mostly yours truly likes to practice with it like flashcards. So there are 5 categories. The game's called Wine Wars. And the categories include Vine to Vino, which is about growing grapes, making wine, and world production. Then we've got Graposphere, which is grape varieties, their wines, and their geography. Then you got Wine Cellar, which is about selecting, storing, and tasting wine. Wine and Food, which is cooking with wine, wine and food pairing, and the service of wine. And then lastly, Cork Culture, with wine people, businesses, arts, science, and trivia. Okay, so let's see our magic quiz today, how many I can get out of 5 and whether I think they're right or I'm right. All right, first one is the true or false question. Oxygen is never a beneficial element in winemaking. Boy, never is a pretty strong word. Oxygen is never a beneficial element in winemaking. True, false? What do you think? John, what do you think? I mean, it's a pretty harsh one. Never is a lot of words. But reality is, oxygen, it is false that it is never a good thing. It has oxygen is part of wine's aging process. And it says false. The small amount of oxygen during barrel maturation is beneficial to the color, flavor, and stability of the wine. Yeah, and it's false just off the never. John, exactly right. Also, the oxidization process of wine, the slow and controlled oxidization of wine, is part of many winemaking processes. For instance, when we talk about tawny port Tawny port has a slow oxidization process. It's oxygen in the barrel that gives it its tawny color. Aging wine in the bottle, right? When you have cork-based bottles, you're getting a little gas exchange in and out. Controlled oxidization is aging properly. So never is exactly the key word there. So, never say never. Yeah, Rob's right. Important to the drinker. Your love language is what? Slow oxidization? Or, tawny port. Yeah, there it is. All right, next one up. What is a wine called that is named for the sole or principal grape variety from which it is made? So what do you call a wine that's made from just one grape? Sum that up just better. What is a wine called that's made from just one grape? For example, our Willamette Valley King Estate Pinot Gris, brought to you by WineShark. Yeah, don't make it weird. Don't look back into the camera. Right? I'll leave like that, Rob. So what is a wine called with that? What is the technical term? Now I'm going to say this, and I'm going to wonder if I'm right or wrong. But I've said that my answer would be is a monovarietal. It says this one just says varietal wine, which I guess they're implying because the varietal is a variety that they call it a varietal wine. But I will totally accept monovarietal. That is much more what I hear people refer to it as. So, all right, 2 for 2. True or false? The wine tasting process is mostly a fun ritual that discloses little about wine. True or false? The wine tasting process is mostly a fun ritual that discloses little about the wine. This is basically, if this is true, my entire world is a sham. My job, my livelihood, this YouTube channel, everything's at stake here on this one fucking quiz question. Which should tell you probably what I'm going to answer. The answer is false. It is not just a fun ritual. There are purposes behind what we do. In fact, I try and think that I highlight in my teaching the difference between the things that are just ritual and manners and the things that have function and purpose. All right, so there is false. Wine tasting techniques help expose visual cues, aromas, and flavors. Rob's got a point. Answer: how many WineShark events do we really remember? It depends on how good the event really was. Actually, I think it actually depends on how good the wine really was, because we've come across some wines that are kind of hard to do at a light. Hello, Laszlo. Can I give you a space, please? Thank you. All right. So to answer that one is false. Wine tasting process is not just for fun and profit. It is absolutely important. Oh man, this is all true and false today. True and false. Chianti, red Burgundy, and Pinot Noir are generally considered food-friendly red wines. Again, poorly written question, but true or false? Chianti, red Burgundy, and Pinot Noir. By the way, red Burgundy is Pinot Noir. So wine A, wine B, and wine B are considered food-friendly red wines. True, false. The weird part is Chianti and Pinot Noir are very different wines. However, I'm going to go ahead and say true. Because, Pinot Noir is like the ninja. Yeah, true. Low tannin, good acidity, and fruitiness make these wines relatively flexible with food. If you think that Chianti is low in tannin, I would have a word with you about Sangiovese. But, still, at least I got 2 out of 3 right. All right, so not bad. We're still acing here. And last but not least, it's going to be one of these weird trivia questions that we're just going to have to guess at. Who is the award-winning wine blogger and the author of Wine Politics? How Governments, Environmentalists, Mobsters, and Critics Influence the Wines We Drink. That is a mouthful of a book title there. Wine Politics. An award-winning wine blogger. What wine isn't food-friendly? Rob brings up an interesting point. The answer to tech, I would say on the broad scale, none. If you like it with food, it's good with food. But wines that are generally higher in tannin have much less food flexibility. So when we talk about food friendliness, usually we mean the wines that go better with a broader range of food rather than just very specific foods. So high tannin, for instance, is considered not necessarily food friendly because you need to counteract it with fats and salts, or wines that are super sweet, for instance. Even dessert wines have a very narrow range of things that you pair with them. Super high acid. Basically anything where you're taking one of the features and really pumping it up, you can kind of get to the less friendly areas. So. All right, so I don't know this dude. We're gonna call him, I don't know, Carl J. McSnuggins was the famous wine blogger and the author of Wine Politics. The answer was Dr. Vino, or let's go by his real name, Tyler Coleman. I have never heard of this blog or his. I guess the Dr. Vino must be the blog, but he wrote the book Wine Politics. Sounds interesting though. He's throwing in governments, environmentalists, mobsters, and critics. So, which I'm pretty sure mobsters and critics are the same people though. You know, I don't know. I try not to consider myself any sort of wine critic, even though we do this whole thing over here with the wine. All right, so let's talk a little bit about that. We've been doing a whole series. This is part 4 of a running series on mass market wines that you might that might actually be good. Kind of a riff basically on the idea of the grocery store grab. So this class technically this classifies as the grocery store grab as far as I'm concerned. But it is, instead of doing with the grocery store grab, we focus on label focusing. We talk about how reading a good label is how we want to know and unlock the secrets about what's in the bottle. Letting the label and the name aren't necessarily that code. So we use label focus. In this case, what we're doing is really looking at wines that have a high degree of ubiquity that you can find pretty much anywhere. In other words, if you have to ask me the question, where can I find this wine? My answer is wherever wine is sold. Okay, quality at a given price point. I'm not just talking. Well, ubiquity is a thing. I'm not talking about we're not talking about getting into some of the really, truly mass market, what I would call bulk wines. I'm not reviewing Sutter Home, for instance. I'm not reviewing some of the really big bulk names and $2 Chuck and things like that. I'm talking about wines that are normally in the same sort of price point that I recommend, and that's in that usually, $10 to $25 price point. Okay. Next, we're kind of looking at it like, is this just name and hype, or is this really worth it? Just because you see it everywhere and it may be popular doesn't necessarily mean that they're hitting the quality points that we want. So what I've been doing is kind of sharing some of the what I call known goods, names that I look for when I'm at a place where if I'm at a store or even a grocery store where they may not have a selection that is really, really keen. I'm looking at some of these names for the old reliables, for businesses that really execute themselves well, and go from there. So today's example of this is a winery that I'm actually familiar with and can definitely endorse. That is King Estate. King Estate is a grocery store level and very common wine, especially in Oregon. But I have found this to be more and more widely available pretty much anywhere I go. Grocery stores, I've seen it at Target, I've seen it at at Total Wine. You're going to get it kind of across the board. And King Estate is a fairly large producer in the Oregon wine space. So I tried them a few years back, and then I had the opportunity to actually visit the estate back in 2010. And so that few years would be a few years more than 12 years now. So they've been going strong for a reasonably long time, and their staff, their approach to wine, and etc., just visiting the space reinforced what I had already found out, and that is their wines are reliable, they're well priced, they are accessible, and just they aren't just another fancy name with a calligraphic script. Because that's, we've talked about how you can be lured in by good wine labeling. Funky wine labeling is a great way to choose a random product. If you're just wanting to experiment, hell, throw caution to the wind. Grab yourself a bottle of whatever looks fun. And hey, look, this one's got a horse and a skull on it. Okay, cool, let's buy that one. Whatever the eye-catchingness is, that's fine. What I'm talking about here, though, is if you see that eye-catchingness everywhere, maybe there's something to that. Well, I would say that this label, of course, is very plain. This is very, very standard, if you will. Let's check out what it says on the back label, because we'll still kind of give it the grocery store grab runaround. King Estate Pinot Gris. It tells us what the grape is. It tells us where it's from. It's from the Willamette Valley. There's also a subtitle there that says family owned and farmed, and it is the 2021 vintage of this wine. So on the back it says Willamette Valley Pinot Gris again, and the back text reads as follows. Overlooking our beautiful valley southwest of Eugene, Oregon, our family-owned winery is dedicated to quality without compromise. The grapes for this wine are from our estate vineyard, blended with the fruit from the finest vineyards in the Willamette Valley, all sustainably farmed. Oregon Pinot Gris has incredible food pairing versatility. We are honored that you have selected this wine to enjoy with your meal. Okay, so there's a lot of words there, but not a lot of meat as to what this thing tastes like. It says that it's food versatile, but it doesn't give us any hints as to what types of food that might be. So King could do better, in my opinion, on their labeling here. Tell us that Pinot Gris from Oregon is going to taste like, it's going to have candied limes and sharp acids. It's going to be tart and refreshing. It's going to be medium in alcohol, light in body, and it, as one of the Pinot family, is one of the grapes that really grow well in the cool climate of the Willamette Valley in Oregon. So, that being said, let's go ahead and give it a taste. Because, well, although I've already had a taste. So there's a couple things about Pinot Gris. So remember, we're talking about the Pinot cousins, Pinot Blanc, Pinot Noir, Pinot Gris. Pinot Gris is the gray grape in the middle. Remember that gray grapes are not gray per se in color. They're much more of a dusky rose or coppery color. That is something that you can often see because this is a white wine, it's a free press, free run, where they don't spend any time in contact with the skins. The color of this wine, by comparison, you've got a really good look on the camera here. It's got this coppery kind of look to it. It is not that pure, bright, yellowish, strawish color that you get out of Pinot Blanc, the white grape, because the white grapes are greenish to yellowish in skin color, whereas these are that coppery rose. And even then, even with a minimum contact with their skins, they still come out with this kind of coppery tone to them. So I think you can kind of spot a Pinot Gris in a lineup by looking for that copperish tone. On the nose, this is, again, it's got this high citrus tone, and specifically, I want to lean towards more lime than lemon, but it kind of has that lemon, trademark Sprite right there, kind of thing going on. It's a little kind of hashtag in the middle. There's a little hint, the acid is very present that almost kind of sinks into a hint of minerality. Right, you kind of get the sense of either that wet chalkboard slatey kind of thing, or something, maybe even like, and although pencil shavings are usually indicative of a bigger red wine, it almost smells to me like some sort of like metal shavings, right? Not graphite or pencil, but like metal shavings. There's this weird, funky, I almost can't place it minerality. Then on the tongue. Okay, now all across the middle of our mouth, nice big front of the mouth acidity. It is not overly acid. In other words, it doesn't have that deep sitting in the jaws of your mouth, make your mouth water kind of thing. Instead, it's got a little bit more of a blend. It's front of the mouth. It definitely makes your mouth water, but it's not as tart or sour as, say, many Sauvignon Blancs you might have had. It's kind of in that just lighter than kind of scale. Very approachable. The flavors shift, though, from citrus to more, I want to say, crisp apple, or green apple, and and even into a white peach kind of flavor. The minerality really doesn't stick around past the nose. And the finish is nice and abrupt. Basically, once it's done with that little pop of fruit and the acid drops off, it's done, your palate's clean, you're ready for another. So, pardon me, I'm going to try and get the sun out of my face here, because apparently it's sinking faster than I thought. Come down, sunshade. There we go. Okay, now it's just at least below my chin, so go figure. Anyway, so yeah, King Estate, great stuff. This is a perfect example of, you're going to find it everywhere. It's going to be reliable. Price point, I believe, comes in right around $14. I mean, that is everything you could kind of ask for in either a staple house wine. Pinot Gris, I think, are especially non-Italian Pinot Gris, which are, of course, Pinot Grigio in Italian. Pinot Gris, I think, are underrated because these don't have that same quality of that lemon drop, lemongrass, high acid that you get in the Veneto, or sorry, that you get in Veneto, and then you also get the Alto Adige Trento versions, which are really sharp acid, really high minerality, only a hint of lemon. This family in that western climate is more juicy, more fruity, still very crisp. So it's for you folks that love Sauvignon Blanc, Chenin Blanc, Riesling. Pinot Gris should definitely be, and especially from Oregon, should definitely be in your rotation if you want to try something new and fun and awesome. All right. So that being said, that's pretty much all I had for you for today. We said I hope to see you guys at some of these wonderful wine events. I said I am sponsoring the Sip and Stroll and the happy hour hike. In other words, I'm not selling tickets; other people are. I am volunteering my time and my wine for you guys to come out, do some promotion, do some awareness, hopefully build some new business with you guys. So bring friends, bring your wine loving friends, come out and say hi. Have a glass of wine. Much to Rob's chagrin, yes, I will be serving Sutter Home White Zinfandel at the wine walk, so you can politely pass me by, but it's okay. I know you anyway. I know that you're just not in for that. But we're telling the story of the '80s, and well, the '80s wouldn't be the '80s without White Zinfandel. And wine coolers. I think we're serving Seagram's wine coolers at another booth. So that is, well, it's what we deserve. Hypercolor and, boy, weird wine choices. The 80s were a hell of a time. Anyway, so sign up for those events. Hope to see you guys there. And more importantly, thank you guys for your support. Thank you for coming out and joining me on the show. I hope you guys watched over the backlog of other shows if you're interested. Again, hit that like button, hit the subscribe, share with a wine-loving friend. We are going to be changing up the Patreon stuff here coming up soon. I have been very remiss in some of my Patreon things. I'm going to shift up how Patreon works. We're going to start focusing to some of our localized and easy things for me to do. Because content creation is not my first love, doing this to share knowledge with you is about as much as I want to be doing in that videography kind of world. I really want to extend this stuff to doing some special events that are basically Patreon specific. That are only for people that are in the local area and that are customized to anybody's individual needs. So look for that upcoming change in the next week, prior to, so basically pre-September, when I'm going to shift things up. So you may see your pledges of any sort are going to reset to 0. You guys can choose to participate as you guys see fit in the new regime. But I really want to make sure that I'm getting feedback from you guys as to what you guys are wanting and get you guys something that is worth the. If you want to just support me because you throw me $1 a month, that's great. But if you want something more and I want to know what it is that's going to be, and I want to work together with you because I love the people that support me that way. It's definitely made this journey that much easier for me. And we're going to talk about fun stuff. So look for changes on Patreon. And if you guys are not Patreon members, go over and check out what is available over there after September 1st. Anyway, until then, guys, I have been your WineShark. Cheers. I've got to figure out why Laszlo is jumping upon me. I think it has to do something with he wants food. And that wouldn't surprise me. All right, guys. Good night.